Hey everyone. Late this week because I ended up spending some time dealing with some of the fallout from CrowdStrike. So, what I wanted to talk about today is what we can take away and learn from the CrowdStrike incident. So, one thing to keep in mind from that is it was external. There wasn't anything you could do if you use that product that I'm aware of that would have prevented you from being impacted. Unlike a Windows update where you could pause them or choose when the update occurred, it appears that CrowdStrike just wanted to make sure that their people were protected and push things out as quickly as possible, which is what caused the issue. But what we can learn from that is just as if you could have a hardware failure, there could be some problem that is outside your control. So what you need to do is find a way to protect yourself and mitigate the impact of something like this. So regardless of whether you're running a business out of your computer or it's just your personal stuff that's there, do you have everything backed up somewhere else? And by somewhere else, I don't necessarily mean the cloud, but I mean a device that is separate and could be used by another computer to get those files back should your computer die. So there's several ways that you could do that. Personally, I don't like cloud backups, and let me explain why. If you take a look at all the material on your computer that you would want to back up, all of your documents, your pictures, music, anything that you've got on your computer, and look at the amount of data that is. While you're backing things up to the cloud, all right, you might have had that initial bump of it just taking a while to back everything up, but now you're not noticing the fact that it takes that long because you're just making little changes here and there. It's a smaller amount of data going, but think of what that would have to be to get that data back. The bandwidth that you would require to fire up a new computer, connect it to that cloud provider, and pull all that stuff back down. I worked for a company years ago that had a wonderful backup process, this great, big, beefy pipe of bandwidth that went from the company to their off-site storage facility. Great. With a little itty-bitty pipe coming back. So while it was enough to keep everything backed up, it was absolutely ridiculous to try to do a restore. The restore took hours and hours and hours over that little pipe. And don't think that if something big happens, you're just going to be able to call up a provider and go, hey, I'd really like to have a gigabyte now. It's not going to happen. So you need to plan for that. And that's why I prefer having small on-site NAS to back things up to. I'm a photographer. I have my photos backed up in such a way that I can just grab them off of my local NAS that's here. In addition to that, I have them backed up again. So I use Lightroom. I pull everything in with Lightroom. And one of the things I like about it is you can tell it where to put a backup copy of your pictures. So it's going to pull the pictures in, put them in its primary directory. It's going to make a copy of them over in a secondary directory. And then I've got another copy process that pulls it off to a NAS so that everything fails. I have an external drive that has the primary. I have an external drive that has the backup. And I've got a NAS that has the backup part 2. So I've got multiple ways that I can bring my files back. I also back up my documents. I do have Microsoft Office that I use for a lot of my stuff, which keeps copies of all of my documents and things. So in that aspect, everything that I need is already partially in the cloud, but that's not my lion's share of my stuff. Now, if you don't have a lot of stuff, you could get away with something like a cloud provider that keeps everything in sync. The way the OneDrive works for Microsoft is my documents, my photos, and things like that are synced to the cloud. So it just runs in the background. Bear in mind, though, that again, if you put a lot of stuff in there and this thing's running, your computer's running all day, it's pushing stuff out there. So the question becomes, what are the most critical files that you would need to get back, and how long will they take to get back? That's going to tell you what kind of provider to use. In addition to that, I would also recommend that if you have multiple drives attached to your computer, make sure you have those drives labeled and you know what goes where. So you have a paper or a document that's stored somewhere that you can get to easily that has what your computer configuration looked like as far as drives are concerned. The reason I say that is if, say, my computer went offline, I can just go start up a new computer, hook my external drives up. But if I don't hook them up with the same letters, things like Lightroom and others where their catalogs have stored in there where they found their data before, I'm going to have to reattach all that stuff. But by having a document that keeps track of what drives were connected where and what letters they were used, I can figure out an easy way to bring everything back online. Beyond that, there's also the possibility that you've got things that are more critical than others to bring back. Make sure you keep a list of that so that when it hits the fan, you can just go down that checklist. Okay, I need this document, this document, this document, I need this Excel document, I need this, so that you have a guide that you don't have to think about, that just says, this is what I need to get, and this is the way I need to get it. And then you can just plow through the data, grab what you need, and get it all put back on your system as quickly as possible. The other advantage of having a checklist like that is you can keep an eye on what the size of those files are as well. So that way you can get an idea for, I started out and cloud was going to be a good idea, but now I've gotten so big that cloud wouldn't be a good idea. I've got terabytes worth of data at this point of photographs. So trying to pull that back down, even though I have a 2 gig connection, not going to be pretty. So take a look also at what a cloud provider costs versus what it would cost you to have a local NAS. Now, bear in mind that just because you have a local network attack storage does not mean you're not going to have to upgrade that. And I don't mean giving it patches. I mean having a replacement unit a couple of years down the road because your drives are going to burn out, or the technology's gotten better on these and you just want to have a newer unit. You want to make sure you've got something that the drives could be swapped in and out easily, and you want to make sure that what you've got is going to hold up for years to come. But at the same time, you want to make sure that, it's got hard drives in there. Maybe I want to replace that in 2 years. So how can I replace the drives in 2 years without losing any data? Or do I just stand up another whole NAS unit in 2 years, copy everything over to the new one, swap out the drives in the other one, and maybe keep that around for another couple of years as a backup, just in case, or just have 2 units and you keep swapping back and forth between the two. Again, the NAS technology doesn't change that much as far as I'm aware. I've got a couple of old ones here that still work just fine. So it's more of a drive situation on those than anything else. But keep that in mind when you're going through and you're looking at what you need to keep and how you need to keep it to make sure that you're protected should something drastic happen, and that you know where your critical files are, what they are, and how long they're going to take to get back and get you back up and running, so that you're not down for days and days trying to get everything back and restored. So that's what I got for you this week. This is how I think we can deal with situations such as CrowdStrike. And I believe that the silver lining, if you will, in that storm that came from CrowdStrike is making sure that you know what you need and where it is and how to put it all back together again. And that's someplace you can get to it, that you don't have to rely on your computer or any other electronic device to find. But it allows you to just take a breath, go down your checklist, and just restore everything that you need. And that's what I got for you guys this week, and I will talk to you all next week.